Hi, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation. Today, I am joined by Fernando, one of our New South Wales-based stylists. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. So looking forward to it.
I always enjoy catching up with you. And we were saying before I hit record, we think it's like 2019 at our Style Awards that we last actually saw each other in person, which is pretty crazy to think that almost 3 years have gone by without actually physically being in the same space.
It's happened so quick as well, and so many things have happened. So it's interesting that we actually get to catch up pre-COVID and then post-COVID as well. So it's like, yeah, it'd be weird.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason that I wanted to get you on, because I know that there's been a few changes in your life since that happened. And that's what I really want to explore today, because as a stylist, you've been able to transition your skills into, a training role now with InStitchu, and you were previously at Oscar Hunt. But it might not be the traditional role that some people watching this might think a stylist ends up in, but that's what I sort of want to touch on first. So can you share with us a little bit about what you were doing before you enrolled with us and sort of where that's led you now?
Yeah, so I was in an industry completely irrelevant to styling or fashion. I was in chemical waste management for about 10 years. And I had a bit of a moment like, this isn't really what I want to do. Like, I want to have some fun with it. And then I sort of transitioned into tattooing a little bit, which was a little bit closer to style.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to have a bit of a skill set that I can take with me to the longevity of being old and gray. And fashion was that outlet for me. So yeah, the correlation between tattoos and suiting are very, very similar. And that's how I sort of ended up in menswear and styling.
Yeah, cool. What do you love about the menswear space?
I like the fact that we're breaking taboos and being able to actually understand how to present ourselves and understand who we are. Because there's a big connotation of for guys that I've sort of seen that we need to dress in a certain way, act in a certain way, be a certain way to portray masculinity.
Yeah.
That we sort of forget how to actually connect with ourselves and who we actually are. So I think menswear for me gives the platform for males to deeply connect with themselves, understand who they are, and be who they are, to give a more genuine idea of masculinity and self-identity. That's what I enjoy about it.
When you say taboos, can you give me an example of the kind of things that you might see?
Yeah, so like there was a big connotation back in the day that if you looked after yourself, like if you had a skincare routine, if you had a hair care routine, or if you dressed with in a certain way, that you were looked at from a certain perspective, you looked at from a homosexual phobia sort of way. And it's certainly not the case. So there was a lot of men that I know, clients as well, who were afraid to take that step to looking after themselves because they didn't want to be labeled in a certain way.
Yeah.
But with the emergence of being able to convey yourself properly and authentically, that sort of goes away now as well. So it's helping, especially the older generation, reconnect and be like, it's okay to look after yourself. It's okay to have a skin routine or a hair routine, or just dress in certain patterns and colors and stuff like that. Just be who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something that you've embodied since the moment that I've met you. You've always had this amazing sense of style yourself. So it sort of makes sense that this is where you ended up, and that's sort of how you, I guess, help your clients now. What was it like? And I know that you've had a few different, I guess, successes throughout your career, one being with Hugo Boss. Can you share with us a little bit about that experience?
Oh, that's still one of my my highlights that I cherish so closely. Like, I'm going to start from scratch because I like to know the whole story. So from the very beginning, I remember seeing an opportunity come up from you guys being posted up, I think on the Facebook group, for a stylist for the spring racing carnival campaign for Hugo Boss with the Tailored Man, Dalton. And at this point, I was kind of unemployed. And I'm like, because of that being unemployed, I had the flexibility to fly down to Melbourne. So I put my hat in the ring and it's like, guys, I'm happy to fly down to Melbourne for this one day and do this shit. Just please pick me. I was fortunate enough to get selected and came down. And then I, at that point, hadn't done the editorial training. So when I had a little bit of a debrief with Lauren before, she was like, have you done this, this, and this from the editorial training? I'm like, Lauren, I haven't done the editorial training yet. So she gave me like a quick 15-minute crash course on how to do it, what to look for. And then the next day I went out to set to work with a few known influencers, actors, well, not actors, athletes for this shoot. And everything just was so autonomous and natural that that by the end of the campaign, the creative director was like, I was one of the best stylists that he's ever worked with. And to hear that from him, considering he's done shoots for, I think Jeep, Mercedes, and a few other big brands as well, was such a humbling experience. And that's when I sort of knew I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a natural thing. And then I went into the editorial training afterwards and it just all fell into place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely a good highlight for me, because of that opportunity as well, I was able to get into an in-store stylist role at a Hugo Boss store.
That's amazing. And then from there, what was sort of, I guess, the career path that you'd taken once that opportunity hit? So you were at Hugo Boss?
Yeah, so we got into Hugo Boss as their in-store stylist. And then I was procrastinating one day, scrolling through Instagram, as you always do. And an opportunity popped up at Oscar Hunt, saying they were looking for a stylist. And I was introduced to Oscar Hunt, again, thanks to ASI when we did the menswear course. And I was fanboying over them for a while, threw my hand in the ring, and came on board as a fitter for Oscar Hunt. And I was there for 5 years, developing my niche in menswear, made to measure, fabrics, tailoring, and understanding pattern construction for suiting and shirting. So from there, I moved over into InStitchu as their national training manager, which I've been here for a year now, which has been a super great privilege of being able to incorporate everything I've learned from ASI in the styling scene and everything I've learned in made to measure menswear in Oscar Hunt, and being able to share that knowledge and guidance to the 16 stores that we have nationwide now at InStitchu, and being able to work with stylists one-on-one to share that knowledge, everything I've learned and all the mistakes I've made, so they don't make the mistakes as well. So it's a really humbling position as well.
I think that's part of that ASI like mentality, though. It's that what I've seen with our stylists is that we're very generous with the information that we have. And we want other people to succeed, because there's that common thread of, we love fashion, we love helping people. And so the fact that you've just said, you're happy to share even the mistakes that you made really connects with me, because being national training manager here, I hear you, and that's something that always comes to mind, and sort of like, here's everything that I fucked up. So you don't make the same mistake, but you can have the success that you're looking for. And it's really empowering as a trainer to be able to deliver that. And I think as well, there's this misconception that in the fashion industry, everything's like glossy and perfect, and it's not the case. And I'm sure you see that day in, day out.
Super raw and rough.
Yeah.
And it's like, learn from my fuck up so you don't have to go through the mistakes and the bullshit that comes in afterwards.
Yeah.
Let me save you from that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that as well, it's like, you learn from your fuck ups as well. Like, you make that mistake once and you never do it again.
So true.
You're like, so it's like fine lines. Like, this may happen, but this is how you deal with it. And if they do find themselves in that situation, they can recover from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a time where I guess that fuck up happened for you and it's been sort of a real blessing?
Yeah. So I remember my first proper one. This is early days in my made to measure sort of career. And it was a wedding party. Well, it was a groom that I connected with really, really well. And then we were coming to a short time frame. It was about 3 weeks before his wedding. His suit had just come back in, because there's a 6-week period between the suit being designed and measurements taken to being made to come back in. And then I was super excited to see it come back in. I've taken it out of the suit bag and it's in the wrong fabric. I've entered in the wrong fabric code. So I'm like, I almost like hit the deck straight away, not going, all right, cool. What do I do at this point?
Yeah.
So all I could do was like be straight up. So I called the clients like, hey, there's been a big mistake on my end. I've accidentally entered in the wrong fabric code. Your suits come back in black instead of navy, but I've already put a suit into production for you in a similar fabric just so we can get it back in time. It's going to be okay. So we'll get you to come back in. I'll come back in tomorrow, try on this suit, see what alterations need to be done, and then we can translate that back to the suit once it comes back in. So once you come back in for the final fitting, your suit for the wedding will be fine in the right alterations.
Yeah.
And you can take that suit as a little gift, as a token of our appreciation and apologies as well.
Yeah.
That moment when I saw that suit not in the right color was a moment that I'm never going to forget. And then moving forward, I learned to like quadruple check the fabric codes.
Yeah.
But it's also from those mistakes that you create the relationships as well. Like people are quite understanding that things go wrong, things happen, mistakes happen, we're all humans. But what they don't forget is how you respond to that, what you do. It's either I could have taken a step back and been like, oh, it is what it is. But you go above and beyond in those situations.
Yeah.
And those sort of situations create friendships and trust. Like I'm still in contact with that client to this day. Like we're friends now.
Yeah.
Because you show that you care. So it's from those mistakes and fuck ups that you build the relationships almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said just then as well. It's like the mistakes can happen, but it's how you respond that will dictate the future of relationship of that client. And I hear this all the time with our students when they're like, oh, I'm not sure whether I delivered what the client was after in their even pro bono sessions as they leave the classroom. Or they're not sure whether something went the right way. And it's like, that's okay. But yeah, like you said, it's how you respond and what you, I guess, do to learn, rectify, and maintain that rapport that dictates what will happen in the future, which is really cool. I'm curious to know, you mentioned before we hit record as well that COVID last year was a bit of a turning point for you. Can you share with me a little bit about why that was and what that led to?
So it was kind of serendipitous at the same time. Like for me personally, with the clients I was working with and attracting, I would always do like a 3-month or 6-month check-in with them. And then I would always find that they would revert back to their old habits or their old wardrobe and be going back to their old behaviors. And for me, that stewed a little bit of curiosity. And I started looking at, why is this happening? Why are people going back to their old behaviors where they're not comfortable and whatnot? And then for me, it's triggered a little bit of a epiphany moment of it is the way people see themselves is an identity. And as an identity, how to change that is a habit. And then a habit can only be changed through a form of perception. So I came up with a new, for me, avenue of personal styling, and it was personal development styling. And it's a bit more of a growth and identity change. And as a result of the identity change, habits stick. And then the presentation becomes a little bit more harmonious.
Yep.
So it's almost like a flipped on dress well, feel good.
Yeah.
Well, how's the expression go? Dress.
You look good, you feel good.
That one. It's the flip of that. So you feel good, then you dress good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it's a whole lot of behavioral changes, the way that I sort of look at things now, where it's from the moment how you wake up to how your morning routine of, for me, like I wake up, brush my teeth, have a coffee. Yeah. But if I'm trying to break that behavior, I need to flip that in a different order. So breaking initial behaviors, how they perceive themselves, taking in elements of different industries and incorporating all into one banner. And I think the reason why it was such a good moment for me during COVID is because there was a lot of time we had to spend by ourselves, with ourselves. And if you're not happy with yourself, that's going to resonate with everything else. So I spent a lot of time reconnecting and re-understanding, re-evaluating myself. And I figured if that was what I was doing, a lot of people were doing that as well. So why not create a forum or platform for them to help?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, at ASI, our biggest, I guess, secret source of the way that we do things is that human behavior element. And it's like what you've done there is huge. And I can imagine that that connects so much more with your clients. And it's interesting what you said just there, where people go back into those old habits, because it can be so easy. I always think about when I worked with a personal trainer and he'd get me to do that sled push exercise, where it was like a weighted sort of sled and you'd have to push it from one end of the gym to the other. And once you get going, that's quite easy. But as soon as you stop and then you've got to like get the cogs going again, it's so much harder. Whereas if you just kept that trajectory and momentum, it's so much easier. And that kind of reminds me of that sort of habit that we do. It's like, it's so easy to fall back into old things, but once you lose the momentum that you had, it's tricky.
And that's the thing though, right? Like it's all about getting dressed is a habit. And you've got a subconscious automatic morning routine, whether you realize it or not, right? So if you're half asleep, your body just goes into this default autopilot mode. You need to flip that automatic behavior. And then that has to correlate back to an identity as well. Like, it's just fascinating. The human mind and body just works in certain ways, which you just can't fathom. Like no one teaches us how to dress.
No,
right?
it's true.
Like we've gone from our parents dressing us to school uniforms at the age of 5 to, I don't know, how old are you?
17, 18.
17, 18. Then we go into university where we try to simulate and dress for the same way as our friendship groups. Then we go into a workforce where they've got a uniform. Yeah. So at no point do we get told how to express ourselves or be ourselves or perceive ourselves.
Yeah, so true.
Which is why what we do as stylists is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
do you find that when you share that with the clients who come in and see you, or even the stylists that you're working with, in this training role, that connects and helps them understand the power that they have that's kind of untapped?
Oh, definitely. Because like, I always ask the question that I've almost sort of taken one of the ASI training pieces of the mirror strategy.
Yeah.
Right. And ask them the questions like, cool, when was the last time you looked in the mirror? And they were like, oh, this morning, quite confident. I'm like, all right. When was the last time you connected with yourself? When was the last time you gave yourself a compliment? When was the last time you noticed something positive about yourself? And then there's always that pause and shit. Hardly ever.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. So if you don't give yourself the time of that, why would someone else? Put yourself first, and then that way you can be your best self, and then everything else will come to you.
Yeah. Compliments are an interesting one. Sorry, we're going to go on a tangent now that you've said that.
Hey, we're allowed to. We're on our own race.
But I always think about it as like a tennis match. And this is something that I share a lot with my clients, is that, especially as women, we distort what we see in the mirror up to 40% to the negative. And so often I ask a similar question, and it's not necessarily when was the last time they gave themselves a compliment, but when was the last time you really heard that someone gave you a compliment? And for so many people, women, men, whatever you identify as in general, we're very quick to almost like hit the tennis ball or the compliment back over the net with something negative about ourselves. So someone might say, oh, that's a really great outfit, or your skin looks really good today. And we'll say, oh yeah, but like my hair's dirty, or I haven't had my nails done, or, something that is sort of deflective of that compliment. And then we don't even take the moment to just appreciate the fact that someone took the time to even acknowledge, see us, hear us, and share that. And if we can't even listen to that, it can be very difficult for us to even look at ourselves in that way and start to give those compliments. So there's that human behavior and connection is so pivotal to, like you said, stepping into that different mindset to then have the identity that matches.
Yeah, exactly. And then, because that's like one of the first things I start with my process now. It's like after the initial phase of having the consultation, I get my clients to write 3 things positive about themselves.
Yeah.
So that way they start opening up the channel of that acceptance. So it's
Yeah.
like because one of the hardest things is getting praise or allowing someone in. But if you let yourself in first, everything else just complement of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love that.
So yeah, it's like I'm kind of the same as well. Like hearing, like if I get a compliment, I would find something else to deflect it to. It's like, oh yeah, like I chose this fabric for X, Y, Z reason. I was like, yeah, I was in a rush this morning, so I threw it on. It's like, oh, this old thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, just accept it myself.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah. And I think in Australia as well, we've got that tall poppy syndrome where we're very quick to cut other people down. So it can be ingrained in us not to accept a compliment or to think highly of ourselves. And I'm really glad that that's changing. I think we're going to see a lot more of that self-championing, essentially, and not being afraid to sort of shine in your own way. I'm curious, though, when it comes to menswear, and you mentioned this at the start in the sense that, you know, we've always had that connotation where if you dress a certain way or you look after yourself, that you're XYZ. What are you excited about, though, in the future of menswear and where that's heading? Because, you know, even seeing Brad Pitt on that red carpet in the linen skirt suit and things like that, and even Spring Racing Carnival here in Melbourne, one of the best suited for the day was a guy in a skirt with like an amazing jacket. You know, what excites you about the future of menswear and where this is going?
I reckon it's quite exciting. Like, I'm a big fan of shoes. So the fact that I feel like more of the leg side of things going to be seen, some more skirts, more shoes are going to be like a platform heel or something like that's going to come through, which is almost like the homage to like old like Victorian era. Because like back in the day, men used to wear heels.
Yeah.
Like heels were for men back then. So we might see an emergence of like men's specific heels, which I think will be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I have almost like contemplated or played around with the idea of like, how would my legs look with a skirt? And like open to the idea, but I haven't got the leg support for skirt. But the notion is there. I think we're sort of this, we're opening up the realm of what's okay and what's not. Not that it's not okay, but like possibilities and options are going to be more available to guys, because technically all we've got as men are a blazer, jacket, shirt, t-shirt, pants and shorts. It'll be great to get a few more pieces out there. Like skirts will be great, cloaks, like even oversized like blouses or black backless dresses. Like I'm like, if it makes you feel good, do it. Like fuck what anyone else thinks. You're the ones who gotta live with it. Make your mark on the world.
Absolutely.
Be expressive, because if you hold yourself back, you're not being yourself, and you're not going to be able to influence in the world around you. So if guys have a great positive association with their legs, flaunt it. Get them out. Make yourself feel great.
Absolutely. I love that. And I'm excited for that too, and to see that sort of coming more and more forward. And I think the skirt thing in particular is probably going to come quicker than what we realize.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you reckon, in your opinion, do you reckon it's going to be more of like an A-line or a bit more of a slimmer fit? Like, how do you envisage it?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because I'm actually working with a lot of trans clients at the moment who are transitioning from men to women. Like that's a market that I'm tapping into. And when they're looking at skirts and what it means to sort of embody something that was traditionally female, it generally is more form-fitting. It's showing female version of a shape. I don't know how that would translate from a more like male identifying client rather than someone looking to be more feminine. But I think the world is our oyster, and I think fabrication is going to play the biggest role, because whether it's an A-line or a slip skirt or a pencil skirt, the fabric will play a role in the body though. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But exciting as well. And I think there's opportunity in that tailoring market to really own that, because as well, when you're fitting something that is traditionally for a woman, essentially, you know, in skirting, it would be like female garments aren't designed for the male shape. So that's also a challenge
Yes.
that I encounter with my trans clients is, just finding something that's going to help them feel feminine, even though it's not necessarily made for someone with less curves or not so much of a defined waist and all of those things. So there's challenges, but there's so much more opportunity that I think designers, brands can tap into and really explore. And that's probably going to be the most exciting part. So
Yeah, definitely.
take away that stigma. So many of my trans clients are like, I feel so nervous to shop in a female store. And it's not that I want to be fully femme essentially, but I want to be able to wear things that make me feel a little bit more like that. Or like you said, show off legs and explore something different. So yeah, be good to see.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that sort of self-expression as well. Like even with pop media of like men like having nail polish as well.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, cool, go for it. Have some fun, mix it up a little bit. The only rules and boundaries we have are the limitations that we put on ourselves.
So true.
So
yeah. Well, that's a great segue to wrap us up, which is when you look at success and having no boundaries in that, what does success look like for you in the future? And how do you actually measure that for yourself?
So for me, success would be the amount of people I can influence and change and help and inspire to be a better version of themselves. So it doesn't matter if it's a client or if it's a person that I just meet at a restaurant or at a bar or at a coffee, at a cafe, grabbing a coffee. It's the mark I can leave on someone and they can walk away seeing an interaction as educational or helpful or inspiring.
Yeah.
And as corny as this sounds, the way I measure that is the genuine smile that I see that resonates with them when they hear that information.
Yeah.
So it's not about, for me, getting a brand or X amount of money or status or anything like that. It's more the self-impact that I make from an interaction with someone. And that's what makes me feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably wouldn't get that in chemical waste management.
Not at all. Not at all. I'd probably lose a limb in chemical waste management. I'll be giving a lot more of myself than I want to.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that you've really found your niche in not only the expertise that you've learned through Made to Measure, but also menswear, but then also that, like you just said, the impact and inspiration that you can leave someone with. And we forget how much, I mean, we see quotes on social media all the time, which is, people don't remember, what you said to them, but they remember how you made them feel and all of those sorts of things. But as much as we read them, how much of that are you actually doing and giving to someone else in every interaction that you have? Yeah.
100%. And I think that's what inspired me with the personal development side of things. Because like, if you're comfortable with yourself, you're there in the moment. You're not worried about how am I coming across or how do I look or how do I feel or anything like that. You're just, if you're genuinely comfortable, you're generally in that moment. So you're not self-doubting or self-critiquing. So I think that's where they both line up and balance up.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hear what you've been up to and looking forward to seeing, where you go from here.
Yeah, like it's been a sporadic sort of few years, but you never know. That's the beauty about this industry. We can go everywhere and anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And I'm sure we'll see you around the traps soon.
Thank you again for having me. And we'll stay in touch as always.